Hi, everybody. I'm Rich Myers, and welcome to the Rich Myers Podcast Show. I'm here tonight with Ben Jam. Welcome back.
I'm good to be back. Good to be back.
What have you been up to since we last met?
Pretty much just always on the road doing shows and constantly in the studio. It's pretty much all I do, and I'm pretty content with that.
Okay. I listened to your track, The Flood. What influenced it?
So there's been a lot of floods all in West Virginia, but suppose there's been, I mean, I guess you could say there's been floods in Rupert, West Virginia. There's been floods all in southern West Virginia. Pretty much all small towns in West Virginia, let alone Appalachia, have been devastated by a flood one way or another. We even had one up in the northern panhandle up in towards Wheeling. Believe it was last year, and it devastated countless lives. And that one was one of those ones where I decided to write it out, basically speak for people that lost a lot during hard times, but never lost hope and faith.
Yeah, yeah, and Angie up there, you can still see the cars sticking out of the ground.
Yeah, I know that big flood that hit the pretty much the rural areas down like in North Carolina and stuff. It's still like towns are completely cut off from traffic and stuff, and pretty much the government is just kind of just like forget it. They ain't even touching it. Kind of like how everything happened whenever uh, Hurricane Katrina happened, and it took ages to finally recover from all that.
Well, let's take a listen to it.
When the water comes, they don't ask your name. Let's take this moment to pray for our people who lost everything. The rain came down on a Sunday morn. Washed the paint off the church house door. Mama grabbed the Bible, I grabbed the dog. We ran through the yard where the river roared. Granddad's porch drifted down the lane. Pictures floating like faces in pain. You can rebuild walls, you can patch your roof, but you can't fix hearts that the flood runs through. The flood don't care about the name you wear. Don't care if you're lost or living in prayer. Takes what it wants, leaves what it spares. The flood don't care. 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 Rich man's fence and a poor man's barn, both gone quiet under their home. The school bell rang, but the kids ain't there. Books and dreams floating in the air. I seen hands reach out in the darkest night. Neighbors helping neighbors just to make it right. When the world turns cool, that's when you see the best of hearts and the worst of deeds. The flood don't care about the name you wear. Don't care if you're lost or living in prayer. Takes what it wants, leaves what it spares. The flood don't care. 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 It'll wash your pain, it'll wash your sin. It'll take you home and make you bend. But faith don't drown, it learns to swim. And hope still hums like a gospel hymn. The flood don't care about the name you wear. Don't care if you're lost or living in prayer. Takes what it wants, leaves what it spares. The flood don't care. The flood don't care. The flood don't care. The flood don't care. The flood don't care.
It was a pretty good song.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. That was one of my favorite ones. I released that on I think it was on my last album. and that was my favorite song that I had cut from that whole entire album. And so I ended up releasing it as the number one track on that. And then I got a lot of luck with Spotify algorithm a couple weeks ago, and it hit a big uh, radio spin on there, and it's done pretty well. It was there for probably 2 weeks straight. It was my number one song on Spotify.
Wow, that's awesome. Um, do you get any other songs, concerts, and what's next?
Yeah, I actually have a show this Saturday at uh, Twisted Sisters. It'll be my first time ever going to this venue, but also my first time ever performing in Worth County, West Virginia. And this show's actually been booked for, I think, since towards the end of last year. So I've been waiting for this show for a good bit, because we don't normally book shows out that far. Uh, but I do know that a lot of people, they book out shows sometimes almost up to a year in advance. But I don't get that lucky sometimes with booking. Sometimes we just got to get what we can get. And this one was actually, I'm pretty sure this show was recommended by a fan, and then he was able to actually lock this show in, if I remember correctly. So that was actually a huge plus for us. And I guess this venue doesn't normally book artists that often, which has kind of been the norm for a lot of venues lately, just because of, I guess, beer sales are at low, like, selling prices in like the history right now. And then just ever since COVID, obviously everything's been hurting a lot. But uh, venues have been, I believe, struggling more than ever to just get people to pull up to support local shows and stuff.
Okay. Um, what's your goals for this year?
So my number one goal is to be able to release new music every single week of the year. My main goal is to try to release an album once a month, and so far I've done so, which is, it's not easy to do that, but it's also not impossible. Um, it's been just a personal goal of mine for a long time now, to try to challenge myself to that level. Some music I've had recorded for years, and I've just like stockpiled, and then some stuff is just kind of coming to me by the day. Uh, but I'm so like far ahead with music that I can, like, I'm sometimes like 2 or 3 months ahead with music build up, that I can kind of just like focus on. Like, people might think that you can't put out good quality music like that, and that is true in some cases. But whenever you have got enough music in your catalog to kind of sit back on, you can kind of build wiggle room to be able to put out quality music consistently when you have 3 months of extra time to do that.
Yeah, and you can always go back and double check it too.
Yeah, I mean, there's some songs obviously that I will never release. There was actually, I've done maybe 2 or 3 albums worth of songs uh, that I completely finished that I'll probably never will release, just because they're not nowhere near as good that I was hoping that they would turn out. And so for me to say that everything is getting released, that's not true. It's just some stuff is getting released, but some of the stuff is definitely not getting released and getting released. It's just, I take it as I'm pretty good at coming up with music. It's just because I've done it for so long. I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that I've always been a smart aleck since I was a kid. So creating things on the fly with my mouth has always been a gift. So I can easily concept songs together really good, and it's able for me to able to lock in the studio is not that hard to do. I just have to be able to be in my studio. I can't focus whenever I'm in a large setting or a large group of people and stuff like that. So like, if I was to go to Nashville and record in a big fancy studio with 20, 30 people in there trying to tell you what to do and not to do, that wouldn't work for me. I would never finish anything. My ADHD would just be like, y'all got to leave or I'm going to choke all y'all.
Okay. Where's the weirdest place you ever wrote a song at?
Weirdest place. Probably when I was back in school, I'd write in classrooms. While the teacher's teaching, sit there and write when I'm supposed to be writing whatever lectures they're giving. I'm actually writing songs. That and probably I've sit in vehicles during work breaks and stuff, and I've written lyrics like that, and that's been kind of normal. Um, that's that when I used to work all on the road all the time. Sometimes you just kind of find the time to write, or sometimes stuff comes to you on the fly, and then you got to write it down real quick. Or in today's world, you put it in your phone. So
Yeah, yeah. Some people tell me they wrote a song sitting on the toilet.
yeah. now now I've come up with stuff when I've been in the shower. Back whenever I would first started doing music a lot, I'd come up with things when I'd be in the shower, and I'd be like, I can't forget this, I can't forget this. And this was before cell phones were even real popular, so you had no choice but to remember it and then write it down on your notepad. So I've definitely had stuff like that happen before. I've never written. I would say, like some people say, they go in the woods or something like that, or go on the river and write. I can't do that. If I go to the river or something like that, or in the woods, I just want to fish. I don't want to write. So yeah, that's not how, for me, that would be the best. My best place probably writing music is literally where I'm sitting right now.
um, if you had a choice to open up with an artist, who would it be?
Past would be Leonard Skinner. That obviously they're no longer alive. Present would be Yellow Wolf. Yellow Wolf's my favorite rapper of all time. He's not even, you can't even really consider him just a rapper because he's just so versatile. Uh, but if anybody in modern day, that's who I would do there. But the list is endless. I guess I could go down to like specific genres, because if I wanted to do rap, I'd do this. If I wanted to do rock, or if I wanted to do country, if I want to do blues. I mean, the list could go on and on for me.
Um, what's the biggest crowd you ever performed for?
Uh, Definitely in the thousands. Uh, I did the Redneck Rave last year, and I'm doing it this year. There was well over 5,000 people there, uh, but you don't really know how many people's there because people probably sneaking in, and then there's trails so you can easily sneak in. I did one in Pipestem, West Virginia. It was probably 4,000 people, and that's pretty big deal for somebody that doesn't really get booked for like fairs and festivals that often. I am doing the Bigfoot Festival this upcoming fall in Summersville, West Virginia, and that's my one of my biggest fairs that I'll be doing. And I'm doing a festival next week too. So these will be my two big festivals, or the only festivals shows I think I've ever done, if I'm not mistaken. So there's potential that there could be really big turnouts there. I believe the Bigfoot Festival it's grown a lot over the years. I think like last year they had like over 30,000 people collectively come to that. So we'll see how it turns out, because they moved locations. They changed the time of the year, and they moved the location due to, I guess, the heat. And then they've grown so much. I believe they've outgrown where they've been at in the previous years. So I'm kind of curious to see how that goes. And then Willie Nelson's granddaughter, I'll be opening up for her for that one. So that's a pretty big deal too.
Have you ever done the state fair in
I have
Lewisburg?
not done the state fair. That is a bucket list for me. If I could ever do the state fair, I would think that I've made it. Even though I've known a couple people that's done the state fair. It's kind of like our big convention center. We call it the Civic Center, but they changed it to Charleston Coliseum or something like that. That's where they book all the big performers that come here. If I was ever to book that one or the state fair, and then there's a big one called the Regatta here, then I would have felt like I made it. I could care less if I did anything else, to be honest.
Um, where can people go and see videos, music, and events?
So I have I have all the social media as well. I don't have Twitter or X or whatever they call it now. Everything, all of my handles are Ben Jamn WV, BenJamnWV, and then I have a new website which is also the same, www.benjamnwv.com, and I have all of my shows, all of my music platforms, all that, and all of my merchandise that you can buy and purchase and everything on that website now to make everything a lot more easy and convenient for people. And this is new territory for me because I've always wanted a website of my own, but I was a little overwhelmed because I had to kind of come up with it myself and figure out, like, I don't pay nobody to really ever do anything for me. I just kind of figure out things. And so I had my first online purchase there this week. And that was so, my anxiety was so up high because I didn't know how to send packages off to anybody. So I was like, how do I ship this and this and that? So I'm literally using Chat GPT. How do you ship from such and such? So I literally shipped my first package off, and I was hoping I don't get overwhelmed with trying to do all that myself on top of doing everything else. So we'll see. But it's definitely, in today's world, it definitely is something that you need to help you do things independently and do it at a rate to where you can do it full time.
Yeah, I think this Disco Kid has something similar like that.
Yeah, so DistroKid is actually where I found the site to run it through. So DistroKid had a deal or something like that, to where if you use bandzoogle.com, and then once you use bandzoogle.com to set up you set up your website through there, you still have to create your whole website, the layout of it and everything, but you get a discounted price because you use them through distribution. So I was able to get a pretty good deal, monthly deal on it, and so it took forever kind of setting that up just to kind of get it right. But if you can use something through, if you're doing music full time and you're setting it up through distribution and they offer something like that, absolutely take full advantage of that. But there's other ways that you can sell merch and stuff like that, like Shopify. I think Shopify is the only place where you can sell merch that allows you to link it up with your Spotify, so you can sell your merch directly through your Spotify. But you can't do that. Like, if I was to put my website on there, they won't allow you to do that. So the only way that you could kind of like override that to showcase your website is the artist pick. You just display your website on the artist pick. So there's little workarounds in certain areas like that you can do that. But for the most part, Shopify or Bandzoogle. It just depends on what your workload you want to do. If you don't want to deal with all the hassle of shipping things yourself, or forking out all the money to get your own custom apparel, then you should use Shopify, and then they handle most of the workload. And then if you want to get a little bit more money and handle a little bit more of the workload yourself, but also give yourself a bigger platform to showcase your music, merch, and all these other items that you can do, then Bandzoogle's the way to go. So, which is the reason I went that way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all confusing.
Are you working on any music now, or?
Yep, I actually submitted. I have an album coming out every first Friday of the month. I actually submitted the next two albums through DistroKid, so they're already submitted and ready to roll out. And now I'm working on what's coming after that. I have a few ideas, but sometimes I try to bounce around sometimes with my ADHD on what I'm going to do next, and then I've been pretty disciplined lately to just lock and load on the same thing and only work on that. So right now I'm working on a project with a buddy from here that I grew up with called his name's Dang, and we're going to do a project together. Now, if that's the next one or not, that'll depend solely on how quick he gets his stuff done. But I'll record him in the studio here, and that'll be the one that I release following the next two that I have coming out.
Okay.
Now, if I keep up this next year, we'll see. So far, I don't feel like I'm I feel any pressure to keep recording or coming up with quality stuff. or is it too much? Like some people will say that's a lot. Right now, I don't feel any of that. So we'll see as the year progresses if I change my mind for next year and then slow it down a lot, or if I keep going at it. But right now, it's working because back when I first started, I believe I had, I think, like 2,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. Right now, I almost have 20,000. So it's not even been 6 months, and so it's definitely working.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people. I didn't think it was going to work either, but it takes a lot of luck. But you got to also have content behind all of it in this day and age. You got to keep putting things out into the world, otherwise nobody's going to see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So one song might not make it
Yeah.
1 week, and then you go back next week, and then it blows up.
A lot of it just has a lot of luck. It's usually the stuff that you don't think much into that goes viral or just does the best stats wise. Like my last release, it's not doing like I haven't put out any content for it at all, but TikTok is doing pretty well on TikTok from people making videos and stuff to it, and that was very unexpected. So sometimes you take what you can get. Yeah, I can tell you from experience, the more time that you put into something like content wise, it never works out. It's usually the stuff that never gets seen, or the algorithm doesn't show it, or just people don't care, or I don't however the algorithm works.
Yeah, depends on how they feel.
Yeah, I mean you can just say the stupidest stuff and it'll get 1 million views, or you can actually put a lot of thought and care in it, for at least my part, and nobody listens to it.
Okay. Well, thanks for being on the show today. I really enjoyed having you again.
Oh, I'll come back anytime. You already know that. And I told you last time, anytime you need some dates filled in, I'll gladly come back.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.